Hello, everyone. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, and today we're going to talk about one of the classic series of pieces of the 1920s. I'm talking about Hindemith's Kammermusiken. That's the plural of Kammermusik, chamber music. This is 7.5 works. I'll let you know what the half one is in a minute. 7.5 works that all partake of a certain chamber music-like sonority and interplay, but which are in fact written for small orchestra. 6 of them are concertos. One of them is an ensemble piece for a group of about 13 soloists, and the half is a woodwind quintet, which Hindemith might as well just have called a woodwind quintet, but that would have been too simple. He called it Kleine Kammermusik, or little chamber music, but it's a woodwind quintet, and it's a charming woodwind quintet. What was Hindemith doing in the 1920s? Well, in the 1920s, this was, of course, the Weimar Republic, in which, the horrifying German defeat in World War I and subsequent political chaos and hyperinflation were absolutely wonderful for music and art, and it gave way to a rise of highly experimental and avant-garde compositions, especially in and around Berlin, and Hindemith was one of those composers who participated in that. But I wouldn't say that his Kammermusik pieces are all that avant, as far as avant-garde really goes. I mean, think about it. There are 7 of them, but as far as the concertos go, there are only 6. And where do we know 6 sort of famous concertos all in a clump? Maybe Bach's Brandenburg concertos for lots of different instruments. And that's what these are. These are neo-baroque pieces. They have a lot of that baroque energy in the outer movements and the quick movements, that sort of nervous, motoric, consistent energy, lyrical slow movements, and basically a general lack of romantic sentiment. Hindemith was very interested in these times. One of his most common indications in his scores of this period is ohne pathos, without pathos. He did not want excessive sentiment. That doesn't mean that these pieces aren't expressive. They are, or they don't express feelings, and they do, but he didn't want that romantic, heart-on-sleeve kind of sentiment. He wanted the music to be crisp and sharp and bracing, and of course, the harmonic idiom is far more advanced than anything Baroque. It's often quite dissonant, but melodic, and always, there's always in Hindemith this pull towards a tonal anchor, towards a melody that we understand and can enjoy. It never quite shows up, perhaps, the way we expect, but it's always there, and it's worlds different from his later style that he developed in the 1930s when he became a socially responsible artist in the face of the Nazi takeover in Germany, and he began to really concern himself with the relationship between the composer and his audience, and to write music that was far more approachable in idiom. But also, when he did that, he lost something of his initial energy and freedom and lightness and sharpness and edge. There's no question about that. That doesn't mean the later music isn't great. I mean, the Symphony Magister Mahler, the Symphonic Metamorphosis, both of which we've talked about here, they're magnificent works. They're based on earlier music. They have a much more approachable harmonic and melodic idiom than these works do. But that doesn't make these works any less wonderful. I mean, they are wonderful. And they've been recorded maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... maybe half a dozen times. Now, individual concertos from the Kammermusik series get played separately, but I'm talking about recordings of the complete set, and we're going to talk about all of them, basically. But I want to go through the set one by one, and the versions I'm going to use as my exemplars are these on Ondine, featuring, they come in 2 separate discs. The others are all glumped together, but it's actually nice to have them separately. This is with Christoph Eschenbach and the Kronberg Academy soloists and the Schleswig-Holstein Festival Orchestra. They are splendid performances, but the truth is, because of the nature of the music, that is, it's kind of like Baroque music, where they say, well, everything sounds the same. you don't have a lot of interpretive options in this music. I mean, you can play it a little faster, a little slower, but all of the performances that we're going to talk about are basically very good. They're all extremely capable. The music doesn't suffer from having slightly different approaches because it's everything is written into the score basically. And so you play it well, you conduct it bracingly, and everybody does what they're supposed to do, and the result sounds just as Hindemith intended it to sound. It's that kind of music. So, and that's also part of its anti-romantic aesthetic. It is not really interpreter sensitive, shall we say. But let's go through them one by one, and I can play you a couple samples. They really are quite marvelous. The first one is for a chamber ensemble of, flute, clarinet, bassoon, trumpet, accordion, piano, violin, two violins, viola, cello, double bass, and percussion. It's wonderful. It's just a crazy, wonderful piece. Let me just play you a bit of the opening. It's impossible to describe exactly what this is. There's an opening prelude, then there's a march, then there's a delicious quartet for like flute, clarinet, bassoon, and one note of a glockenspiel, and then a crazy finale, which Hindemith calls, finale 1921. It has a foxtrot in it, and it ends with a siren going off. And really the only performance characteristic I care about is how good the siren is. And this has the best siren. Oh, it's wonderful at the end. In fact, let's not play the beginning. Let's play the end with the siren going off. Just listen, you'll hear what I mean. Fun, huh? I mean, and this is a terrific performance, quite frankly. Especially the accordion has sort of a nice squeaky quality to it that's lots of fun. But that's Kammermusik number 1. Number 2 is a piano concerto, actually, and it's in 4 movements. The other thing that makes these sort of neo-baroque is that Hindemith is not interested in classical forms, really, in any of these pieces. Some of the slow movements are passacalias. He uses, that's a set of variations over a repeated bass line. A lot of the forms are just ritornello, Baroque ritornello forms. That is where you have like a rondo, where you have an opening theme with episodes and bits of it come back and it gets developed. And he's not wedded to 3 movement forms. The first Kammermusik has 4, but these concertos have, 4, 4, 5. A couple of them have 3. They're incredibly free in terms of formal objectives and the way that they're shaped and structured. And all that really matters is internal contrast. They all last from between 15 to 20 minutes. They're not overtly long. I mean, they all realize this Kammermusik, this chamber music concept. So number 1 is a piano concerto, and the ensemble that accompanies the piano is a violin, a viola, a cello, double bass, 2 flutes, oboe, clarinet, 2 clarinets, bassoon, a horn, a trumpet, and a trombone. Number 2 is a cello concerto in 4 movements. It begins with a wonderful slow introduction. And, like I said, each of these pieces has a different shape. And that's what's fun in getting them all as a group, discovering the contrast and variety between them. It's written for cello, accompanied by a violin, a cello, a double bass, a flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, horn, trumpet, and trombone. Number 4 is a wonderful violin concerto in 5 movements. Just a terrific piece. It begins with something called signal. The signal is a signal. It's a fanfare. It's just a minute long. And then it has a finale that's marked as fast as possible, at the end of which Hindemith says, please, if you can, go faster than possible. It's very exciting and lots of fun. The scoring has no other violins. It has 4 violas, 4 cellos, 3 double basses, 2 flutes, a bass clarinet, a regular clarinet, two clarinets, two bassoons, three bassoons, a trumpet, a trombone, a bass tuba, and some percussion, some tom-toms. Very, very interesting orchestral outlay, isn't it? Number 5 is for solo viola. And also, it has no violins. It has 4 cellos, 3 double basses. Let's see if we get this right. Flute, bass, clarinet, 2 clarinets, 3 bassoons, a horn, a trumpet, 2 trumpets, a trombone, and 2 trombones, and a tuba, all for the viola concerto. Now, the viola was Hindemith's instrument, and the viola concerto is extremely, extremely affecting, I think. It's a wonderful work in 4 movements. Now, number 6 is for viola d'amore. The viola d'amore is kind of like a viola. It has some like sympathetic strings underneath. It has this dusky, soft tone. Hindemith fell in love with it. Janáček included them in his operas because he liked the name of the instrument, not that he had any idea what it was or how to write for it. Hindemith also wrote for it in a somewhat awkward way, but he played these pieces. I mean, these were for his instrument. So, he must have known how to do it. The Viola d'Amore concerto has 3 movements, the last of which is a variation movement, and it's scored for, 3 cellos, 2 double basses, a flute, an oboe, a bass clarinet, a regular clarinet, a bassoon, a horn, a trumpet, and a trombone. And I think it's really, it's a very, very interesting work. And the last of them, here's the weird one. It's an organ concerto. It was actually written for a radio broadcast, and Hindemith tailored the whole thing for the broadcast capabilities of the late 1920s, which were not all that great. So it's a very intriguing piece of music. And what's wonderful about this piece, I love this piece, I really do, is that the organ writing is basically in 2 parts throughout, or mostly. He does not indulge in that huge, churchy organ sort of thing, which you hear in romantic organ music. And the result sounds a lot like Handel's organ concerti. That is, for a slimmed down kind of treatment of the instrument, because Handel's organs were very small. I mean, they were portable, basically, portable organs. You could push them around and you'd pump your pedals and they would do their thing. Whereas, this was for a real pipe organ, but it's not written in a dense way. It's linear, and it's really quite wonderful. I'm going to play you a sample of it, but let me give you the scoring first. It's for, 2 cellos, a double bass, 2 flutes, an oboe, a bass clarinet, 2 bassoons, 3 bassoons, horn, trumpet, and trombone. And here's just a bit of the finale so you get a sense of it. I think this is wonderful music. Different, isn't it? It's extraordinary. It really is. But all of these pieces are wonderful. And I just do want to talk about recordings generally before I just go on and recommend these Ondine ones, because they're available. I mean, the problem with this music is that it's contemporary music. It's not the most popular music in the world. Recordings come and go. One of my all-time favorites never even made it to CD. It was on I think Deutsche Harmonia Mundi, but it was with Ensemble 13 Baden-Baden, and I've never seen it on compact disc. It's such a pity. It's sitting in an archive somewhere. They were wonderful, fresh, bracing performances. But as I said, all of them are pretty good. There was this one on RCA with Ensemble Moderne. This is my least favorite. Let me do it this way, sort of avoid the glare here. There we go. My least favorite of all of them, simply because it doesn't have any couplings. You don't get the kleine Kammermusik, which you do on Ondine. And also, it's the siren isn't very good in the first one. They use sort of a slide whistle, which I think is kid stuff, Next, there was Concerto Amsterdam on Teldec. Here it is. Don't ever expect to see this again anytime soon. I mean, these are very good performances. Again, you only get the 7 standard Kammermusiken. You don't get anything else. Then, believe it or not, Claudio Abbado did them with the Berlin Philharmonic. They were on 2 separate EMI CDs. I don't think, actually, I had to get them as imports. I don't think they were even released in the United States. They were a labor of love for Abato. They must have been, because nobody cared about them. Nobody talked about them. Nobody was interested in them. And it's the Berlin Philharmonic. I mean, they're great. Absolutely great. I don't know how he got them to do it, but here they are, all 7 of them on an EMI twofer, if you could still find it. And also, this is coupled with a totally different performance of Der Schwanendreher, the viola concerto, the concerto for viola and wind orchestra. So you get Der Schwanendreher and the 7 Kammermusiken. However, the major Kammermusik recording until like very recently, because it's also out of print, it went poof, gone, if you can still find it, was this one with Chailly and the Concertgebouw. You also get the Kleine Kammermusik on this version. This was on Decca, originally 2 puffier CDs in a larger case, now in a little slim twofer case. I mean, they bothered to remaster it, they bothered to reissue it, they bothered to delete it twice. I don't know what the point was. They are superb performances. Absolutely marvelous. You know, some of the best stuff that Chailly and the Concertgebouw did. So if you can find that, it's well worth having. However, I am in love with these new recordings on Ondine. One of them was released a little while ago. The second just came out. They are superb. Absolutely superb. These are in some ways the most lively, the most exciting. Obviously, you know, they're young players. They're having a great time. Eschenbach does not have the opportunity to emote all over this music. He understands the aesthetic. He conducts with great sharpness and energy, and I love these performances. These are now my recordings of choice, and I mean, you can get them. Thank you, Ondine. Please keep these in print for a while so that people have a chance. People have a chance to consider them. And that, my friends, is the story of Hindemith's Kammermusiken. Fabulous, fabulous works from a wonderful historical moment, a really important artistic and aesthetic moment, and they are seminal works in Hindemith's output. The next major work he would do after his Kammermusik number 7 was the concert music for strings and brass of 1929 for the 50th anniversary of the Boston Symphony. And that, as you know, is a transitional work that's moving to his more sort of approachable phase. But there's nothing not approachable at this music. I mean, you just have to like a little spiky dissonance now and then, and you're in business. They're great pieces. So keep on listening, folks. Take care, and thank you so much.